Is wheated whiskey better whiskey? We're going to find out. Hello and welcome back to the channel, and yes, today we're going to be finding out whether wheated whiskey makes a better whiskey or not. And to do that, I'm going to be pitching the regular Woodford Reserve against its wheated counterpart. Now, for those of you who've been watching this channel for a little while, you may remember that right at the start of this year, I reviewed two whiskies from up in Scotland. It was in a very different place, very different look and feel to where I am right now. And they were the E.H. Taylor Small Batch, which was phenomenal, and the Springbank 10, which, well, frankly, was also absolutely phenomenal. But they weren't the only whiskies I had with me. The other one was this, the Woodford Wheated. And, well, I'll be honest, when I sat down of an evening, it was over Christmas time, I just sit there and enjoy a whiskey, and I'll be honest, this one wasn't really doing it for me. I don't know whether it's just because next to those others it was just, yeah, not quite there, or whether I really just, I'm not a fan of wheated whiskey at all. I really don't know yet, so I thought it'd be interesting to find out by, say, pitching it against the regular Woodford. Just before we crack into these, a few stats about each. The regular Woodford comes in at 72% corn, 18% rye and 10% barley. Meanwhile, the wheated comes in at 52% wheat, so it is a wheat whiskey, 20% barley, 20% corn and just 8% rye, so they are definitely very different things indeed. Price wise though, there's actually not much in it, at least here in the UK. The regular tends to retail for between £30 and £40 at this point in time, meanwhile the wheated between 35 and 40, and well, I can only imagine the regular is just that bit cheaper on occasion because, well, there's more of it around. And just before we break into them, a quick look at the bottles. We'll do both side by side this time because, well, frankly, they are pretty similar. You can see the differences in the names there, but, well, otherwise, yeah, they're pretty much uniform. So similar, in fact, that I did a video a few weeks ago where I was recommending supermarket kind of beginner bourbons in a video, and, well, although I was talking about the regular one, at the end of the video I accidentally picked up the wheated off my shelf, not knowing the difference until someone pointed it out in the comments, because, well, yeah, with the exception of this one having a red label at the top and a few red accents, they're all nigh on identical. Disappointing. Better. So then, in the glass, they are almost identical as well, to be honest. They've kind of got this nice sun-kissed look to them. The wheated, which is this one, has ever so slightly more of a deep orange hue, but that's only really if I put it up to the light. Can you see them there next to each other? They look very, very similar indeed. Right then, Woodford regular to start with. I always find this quite ethanol forward, but not like intensely so. There's a lot of the aroma, but it's not too spiky. It's quite fruity. It's got some stone fruit vibes, maybe a bit of citrus peel. It's quite refreshing, relatively speaking, on the nose, and it has got some default vanilla, slightly caramelly bourbon notes, but it's not too rich, and actually it's not too complex. It's a pretty straightforward nose on this one. Whereas the wheated, now I've not tried this at all since I was up in Scotland, and basically since it was first opened, so I don't remember it all that well. It's definitely different, but they also definitely share a lot of similar characteristics. Again, it is quite ethanol forward, but it's even less intense than the regular. It's got a bit of a fruity vibe. It's a bit more kind of red berries and cherries than it was the stone fruit and citrus peel, but now there is still a bit of citrus in there, and, well, I have to say, I find it a bit hard to really open up. Like, it feels a bit muted, a little bit soft, kind of a bit boozy without a lot else going on the nose. But anyway, let's give them a try, shall we? Cheers. Always feel like regular Woodford's got a bit of honesty about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's got this definite lower end, although it's not really the low end of bourbon anymore, but it's definitely a lower end product. It's not the most refined. It's got a bit of, I guess, overzealous ethanol alcohol hit going on with it. but it's got some nice sweet tones. It's got this really, well, I just guess traditional oaky, vanilla, caramelly character to it. There's definitely some rye spice in there. It's a bit peppery, which I think actually makes it feel boozier than it is. It kind of accentuates that ethanol hit into something, yeah, a bit more prickly because of that rye heat, which to be honest is something I kind of like. This is a really weird one where quite often, and I've ended up with quite a lot of bottles of Woodford in recent years, and I've got to the end of one, I'm thinking, you know what, I'm really glad that's out of the way now and get onto something a bit more interesting. I have a break from it for a few months, and then all of a sudden I have a sip and it's like, I don't know, almost charming in how simple it is. There's not heaps going on in there, but as I say, this charm in honesty really is where I'd put that one. Right then, water break. And then into the wheated. I really, really want to like this more than I did when I was up in Scotland. The aroma on it's just, it's too soft, I think is what it is. Like, it's just really, there's no high points at all. It all feels very, very, very low down. Right then, let's give it a go. Cheers. It's sweeter, slightly, softer, certainly. Arguably quite a bit oakier on the finish. I don't hate it, but I just can't find anything in there that I'm absolutely mad about. Now, I'm going to go back for another water break because I want to go back to the regular for a second. Reason being is that I've just remembered something, and that is that on quite a few occasions I have mentioned that I think Woodford is actually quite a good kind of gateway from Scotch to bourbon and bourbon to Scotch, because it doesn't have such intense bourbon notes and has some kind of flavours that are a little bit reminiscent of some Scotches. Not all of the notes, of course, although this has got to the point now where people have started commenting on videos, and I think taking the pee a bit because, well, yes, it's not there. It's not the same, but, well, you know. But anyway, I just want to kind of recalibrate my mind on that idea. And having gone back and forth now, I actually still think that's right. It's got this kind of floral honey character that I didn't mention at all in the first instance. And palate acclimatization is a real thing, and it's something that I think everyone really should be aware of, whether you're making videos on the matter or whether you're watching videos on the matter. If someone's just taken that first sip and it's their first sip of the day, what they are going to taste there is not really what it's like as a full picture, because all of a sudden, whilst everything I said about the original Woodford to start with is still absolutely true, it has got this extra, slightly, as I say, floral, honeyed bite that is very, very reminiscent of some Speyside whiskies. Now, not the whole thing, but that bit of it certainly is. However, I don't think I'm getting that with the wheated. Let's find out. No, I'm just not. Interestingly, I said it was less zesty than the original to start off with, but now one of the kind of key lingering flavours in this for me is kind of orangey, and it's almost reminding me of some orange liqueurs. It's quite, yeah, hints of Cointreau in there. It's quite sweet, it's quite dulled off, so I'm even getting kind of regular whiskey liqueur Drambuie vibes from it in some regards. But if I'm being completely honest, it feels like they took the regular and just took a load of interesting bits away. Now, it is smoother, 100%. It's possibly a easier starter beginner bourbon, absolutely, but it's definitely not better. And now I'm a little bit worried about wheated whiskey. I am a big fan of a lot of Buffalo Trace products. Almost everything I've had so far from them has been that mash bill number 1, which is kind of the traditional, slightly corn heavy, bit of rye, bit of barley. But I know some of their more premium offerings have quite a lot of wheat in it. And well, based off what I've experienced here today with the Woodford wheated, I don't know if I'm ready for that or not, especially considering that they're a load more expensive. Obviously, no relation between these and Buffalo Trace, of course, but let me know in the comments if you've tried any of those. I think it's mash bill number 2 from Buffalo Trace. Thinking Weller, some of the obviously insanely expensive Happy bottles, a few things like that. Yeah, use that grain, and I'm just like, do I want those or not? Because based on this, well, I don't know if I do, but equally, this is, I think, even much more heavily wheated than they are. So maybe this has just overdone it. Maybe there is a space, because the wheat does soften things off, makes it a bit more approachable. It might help balance and bring out a few other flavours. But in the Woodford wheated, Yeah, I'm not really sure it's doing it for me. So, should you buy it or not? Well, I think everyone should have a bottle of the regular Woodford because it's not the sweetest bourbon out there, and it will probably help you understand whether you want a really sweet bourbon or not. Because, well, if you don't like this, then there's a lot of other stuff you're definitely not going to like, and I think you're almost certainly not going to like any Scotch whisky, so it might help you eliminate one or two other ideas. But what is really interesting about it is that despite not being as sweet as many others, it's not filling that gap with another note. Quite a lot of others, when they kind of drop off in sweetness, becomes nutty, slightly savoury, more oaky. This kind of stays chill. It's just not very sweet, but also not very intense anywhere. And if you think that's too much, then, well, the wheated is probably the way to go because that is really soft, really dulled down. It is still a, what ABV are they? I forgot to mention that earlier. 43.2 and 45.2. So the wheated is slightly stronger, and yet despite being stronger, yeah, doesn't taste it. It is much more chilled out, but I'm not sure in this instance it's a good thing because I just feel like it's lacking kind of some body and some interesting flavours, really. It's perfectly nice, but that's all I can say about it. It's not nice because it's just nice because it's not offensive in any way at all, but that doesn't necessarily make it a fantastic whiskey. That is my view anyway. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and what other wheated whiskies should I try and put up against this to see for real whether I really like wheated bourbon or not. But until next time, that really is everything. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you would be so kind, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.